kunja bihari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadhari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadhari. Yashodanandana Prajajanaranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajanaranjana. Yamunatiravanachari. Jamunatiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Bhagavad-gita. Thank you for coming. I'm going to read from Bhagavad-gita, chapter 2, first text. Please say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Or is that only for Bhagavad? What is that? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sanjaya Uvacha. Tam tata kripaya vishtam ashru purna kulekshanam vishidantam idam vakyam vacha madhusudana. Here we go. Sanjaya Uvacha. Tata kripaya vishtam ashru purna kulekshanam vishidantamidam vakyam vacha madhusudana. Sanjaya Uvacha. Tam tata kripaya vishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam vishidantamidam vakyam vacha madhusudana. Sanjaya Uvacha. Sanjaya said, Tam unto Arjuna, Tata thus, Kripaya by compassion, Avishtam overwhelmed, Ashrupurna akula full of tears, Ikshanam eyes, Vishidantam lamenting, Idam these, Vakyam words, Uvacha said, Madhusudanaha the killer of Madhu. Sanjaya said, Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana Krishna spoke the following words. Please repeat. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana Krishna spoke the following words. Purport. Material compassion, lamentation, and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self. Compassion for the eternal soul is self-realization. The word Madhusudan is significant in this verse. Lord Krishna killed the demon Madhu, and now Arjuna wanted Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that had overtaken him in the discharge of his duty. No one knows where compassion should be applied. Compassion for the dress of a drowning man is senseless. A man falling in the ocean of nescience cannot be saved simply by rescuing his outward dress, the gross material body. One who does not know this and laments for the outward dress is called a Shudra, or one who laments unnecessarily. Arjuna was a Kshatriya, and this conduct was not expected from him. Lord Krishna, however, can dissipate the lamentation of the ignorant man, and for this purpose the Bhagavad-gita was sung by him. This chapter instructs us in self-realization by an analytical study of the material body and the spirit soul, as explained by the Supreme Authority, Lord Sri Krishna. This realization is possible when one works without attachment to fruitive results and is situated in the fixed conception of the real self. Hare Krishna. So Sajjani is going to start speaking first, and then I'll try to say something. And please forgive me for my attire. I came straight from town.
And please forgive this class. Okay, so I'm going to start by recapping, which I think is a good way, because then, you only hear the class, once a week, so it's good to recap. So, Arjuna laments for his relatives because of his misidentifying with the body. He's seeing, okay, these are my brothers, these are my grandfather, etc. Ultimately, we can see that Arjuna is distressed and full of so-called compassion and very disturbed. Arjuna is stating all the reasons why he cannot stand and fight the Kauravas, and is telling all of this to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Arjuna's dear friend. In chapter 2, the longest chapter of the Gita, lays the foundation of the whole Gita, where all the points delivered are summarized. Prabhupada says, if we just read the second chapter, we can understand the whole Bhagavad-gita. So with the translation, Arjuna, it starts with Sanjaya said, but who is Sanjaya? Does anybody know? Yeah.
It's okay. And he was like, the advisor, is that how you say? We can say like that? He was the advisor of Dhritarashtra?
Yeah.
What do we say?
Yeah.
So Dhritarashtra was asking him, so what happened in that battlefield? And Sanjaya then was told.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I kind of see Sanjaya as like a double agent, because on one side he's the intimate advisor and confidant, and also the charioteer of Dhritarashtra, the blind king, but he was also a great devotee of the Lord. So I kind of see him as like a double agent, because but Dhritarashtra was not only visually blind, but he was also spiritually blind. And it is described in the Mahabharata that Dhritarashtra cannot see the injustices committed by his sons, the Kauravas, to the Pandavas, or the righteousness and purity of the Pandavas, or his inevitable destruction caused by his envy and greed. And because of this greatest flaw of putra sneha, or blind affection towards his sons, he shows that one may have high intelligence but low morals. In the Mahabharata, chapter 42, it explains that Sanjaya is an initiated disciple of Vyasadeva, who is the literary incarnation of the Lord. Sanjaya promises King Yudhishthira that he will only repeat their messages as they have been spoken to Dhritarashtra. So when Sanjaya goes back to Dhritarashtra after being gone for days and explains to Dhritarashtra, your acts have been indescribably sinful, O king, and you will receive their results. Reflect carefully on your course. Your motives are sinful. However, this book continues to take place, so Sanjaya describes it to Dhritarashtra, exactly how it is happening in the present after being gifted with spiritual multi-dimensional vision. And in a lecture that I'll go into later of Prabhupada's, he says that Sanjaya can see it in his heart like a television. How we can see, what's happening in the world around us is kind of what Sanjaya can see in his heart of the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So now we're going to look through the purport and recap the main points that Prabhupada explains, and then we can go deeper into these points and share wisdom of the acharyas and also some self-reflection. So firstly, Prabhupada speaks on material compassion in the purport and lamentation, and that tears are signs of ignorance of the real self. But for me, when I was reading that, for me, tears can be a sign of sincerity, and so I wanted to unpack that and explain what Prabhupada was saying. So Keshav Maharaj explains this. He compares material and spiritual compassion. So material compassion is that which identifies the temporary bodily comforts and desires of others and also oneself. And though with Arjuna, we can see his noble sentiment of him wanting to not kill his family because he's going to get distressed from that. But we can also understand that this compassion is misguided because that's not what his role is. You know, as a kshatriya is strong, and Krishna's instructing him, oh, you should fight because that's the higher goal here, you know. So then we also look at spiritual compassion, and that is when you understand what the goal is and you're helping one to realize the self and the real purpose of one's life, which we can see is what Krishna is doing. So in this verse, we can see that Arjuna is aligning with the material misguided compassion. But on the other hand, Krishna is seeing that Arjuna is feels very deeply for his relatives on the other side, the Kauravas, and reveals that compassion should be delivered to living entities through, you know, divine instruction and shelter, and that compassion doesn't come out of judgment, but mercy when the sincere soul is confused. So yeah, Krishna sees that Arjuna is full of, you know, compassion, and his mind is depressed and his eyes full of tears. So now we've gone through that. So Prabhupada highlights the name Madhusudan as like an important word in the verse. And as Prabhupada explains, Krishna killed the demon Madhu, which gave him the name Madhusudana. Now Arjuna wanted Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that distracted him from discharging his duties. But Prabhupada also emphasizes that there is no need to lament for the outer dress of the gross body, and uses the analogy of drowning in the ocean of nescience. It is not Arjuna's position to lament such things because, yeah, he's a powerful warrior. In Arjuna's sorrow, we can see it as Arjuna being soft-hearted, kind, and noble for wanting not to hurt his family, which, as I said, are all valid. However, that's not his position as kshatriya. So he was wrongly identifying himself to avoid what he was best at. And that's why Prabhupada says in the Gita not to do one's duty, even if it's not your own perfectly. It's better just to do your own duty, even imperfectly. So Krishna put Arjuna under this illusion for the benefit of us all, because this confusion that Arjuna felt so deeply was necessary for Krishna to sing and teach this knowledge. And for a text that had been written 5,000 years ago, I feel like it has so much prevalence. You know, just in our lives, we often get a bit upset about things that are only temporary, but if you have some patience and you wait it out, then it goes away. It's just time heals things. So this verse opens the conversation of the real subject of the Gita, which is the war within, as Keshav Maharaj calls it. And it describes the struggle of self-mastery and purpose, and the difference between material and spiritual self. And this is where the second chapter is really cool, because that's where it opens it up to that conversation of, you can, like, you know, Krishna's about to talk in the next verse or the next couple of verses, and then that's when the Gita really starts, is when Krishna starts talking, because then you're getting all of this instruction that we can also apply in our own lives. This verse is the start of Arjuna's full surrender to Lord Krishna, and also the realization that, yeah, I'm not this body, I'm the eternal soul, and how can I be of service to Krishna? How can I please you? So now we'll go into the lecture of Prabhupada's. He gave it in 1972 in Ahmedabad, Gujarat. And what I took from the class is that those who are not devotees desire to become Krishna or one with Krishna, but in devotional service, that's just not the goal. And by doing devotional service, we become the commander of Krishna when we have become completely purified. So Prabhupada talks about the 5 types of liberation, which is Sayuja, Swarupya, Salokya, Shashti, and Sampya. So I'm going to explain what they are. So Sayuja means to become one with the Lord, which is what the Mayavadis aspire for. Svarupya is to have similar bodily features with the Lord. Salokya is to live on the same planet as the Lord. Shashti is to have opulence, which is equal to Krishna, to have similar opulences. Samipya is to personally associate with the Lord. However, might be, pure devotees, they don't want any kind of mukti. And we can see that when Lord Chaitanya prays in the Shikshashtakam, in the 4th verse, Nadanam najanam na sundarim kavitam ba jagadisha kamaye, where he says, O Lord, I do not desire wealth, followers, beautiful women. All I want, life after life, is unmotivated devotional service to you. And in the Brahma Samhita, it says, Anya bilashita sunyam. So a devotee doesn't have any other desire than to serve the Lord. And Prabhupada also says that Krishna isn't anything material, but he has his own form, but that form is transcendental, which is Satchidananda. Whereas for us, as Prabhupada says, we have a gross material body, but we do have Satchidananda in our heart because Krishna is there. And then he goes on to talk about Sankaracharya, who preached impersonalism but also admitted himself, Narayana para avyaktat, which means Narayan, the form of Narayan, is beyond this universe. In Teachings of Lord Kapila, text 9, Sankaracharya also says that we should not compare Narayan to anyone, or to speak of a poor man in the street, because he's beyond this universe, he's not material. He goes on to say that Narayan is Lakshmipati, the husband and controller of the goddess of fortune. So how can he be compared to a poor man? He's not, you can't compare him. He's beyond that. In Bhagavad-gita 8:20, it says, Ratam stapaya me achyuta. Achyuta refers to one who does not fall down to the material world from his original position. And when one does fall down to the material world, then they become chuta, because they forget their relationship with Achyuta, or Krishna. And in Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 21, Verse 12, in Prabhupada's purport, he states that every living entity is part and parcel, or the son of Krishna. However, because of the modes of material nature, a living entity forgets his relationship and thinks in terms of different species of life. However, when one returns to his original consciousness, he does not observe bodily designations indicated in Bhagavad-gita 5.18, Pandita Samadashanaha. So then I wanted to go on as well. So I'm thinking, well, how do we fall down? And I know I've thought about that. How did we fall down? But Prabhupada says that when we become envious of Krishna and we want to enjoy this material world, that's when we fall down, because we're wanting to become Krishna, or we're wanting to enjoy like Krishna. And he goes on to say as well that everyone in this material world, from an Indragopa, which is a Sanskrit word for like a microbe, because he makes the comparison between Indragopa, but there's also Lord Indra, who's king of the heavens. But all of them are subjected to enjoy or suffer the actions of their karma. So when Arjuna places himself between the two flanks of the battlefield, then he becomes disturbed. I have to kill the other side, my family, no, I can't do that, I can't fight. However, Arjuna is not properly situated in his dharma. Dharma kshetra. Sorry, just whatever. Dharma kshetra was visible in Arjuna because he was a devotee of the Lord. So, Arjuna, the reason, he said, Arjuna is a devotee, so he felt, what is this? Why shall I kill my brothers? This sentiment came into the mind of Arjuna, but not on the other side of Duryodhana, because Arjuna is a devotee and Duryodhana is not. So when one is pure, then the effects of dharma becomes manifest very quickly. And in chapter 7:15 of Bhagavad-gita, Prabhupada, the verses, Namam dakshino muda prapadyante naradama. One who is sinful has a brain that is applied to mischievous activities. However, for example, someone who is applying those mischievous activities, they have a good brain, but they're just not using it correctly. If someone has a good brain, then they should engage in good work. Like a thief planning a heist, they're figuring out where the cameras are, they're figuring out the rotation of the guards, they're figuring out their escape routes. But for what cause? They get $1 million in one heist, but in the next heist they want $5 million because they're not happy with just the $1 million. Whereas, for anyone else, $1 million is like, I've hit the jackpot. Because they're never happy or satisfied. Arjuna in Dharmakshatriya in Kurukshetra, although he showed weakness, it wasn't actually weakness, it was compassion. So Arjuna is not a coward, but he had compassion because he was a devotee. However, at that time it was misguided. A symptom of a devotee is that they are unhappy seeing others unhappy. However, the material mindset, seeing someone so happy because their material situation has improved, but they're not happy, they become unhappy because of enviousness. They start comparing them to that person, and they're like, oh, they've achieved so much, I have nothing, and then you start becoming envious about that. And the term for that is griha medi. In some way, envy is something everyone feels. We see it in business, wars against nations, and just everyday life. But that's because we're in the material world. Spiritual advancement is when one does not experience envy. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 2, it says that if one wants to know the real truth, vastavya, vastu, then one must become unenvious. And that's why in the Bhagavad-gita as well, Krishna says that Arjuna comes to know this knowledge because he's my friend. And that is the basic principle of the Gita, which is the war within to get us out of ignorance and enviousness. So how do we do that? We take shelter of those who have understood the truth or know it. Like Arjuna, a pure devotee of the Lord, and he takes shelter of Krishna's guidance. And that is the perfection of life. When we're scared, worried, depressed, or even happy, all these emotions can be handed to Krishna. Krishna, I'm feeling this. I don't know how to deal with it anymore. Please help me. Well, I know when I was in the ashram, Ajita Prabhu suggested I do this, that if I'm concerned about something or something's on my mind, then I just open the Gita and I just read whatever the verse is or the page or the couple of pages. And I found that it actually kind of relinquished what I was feeling, and sometimes the concern or whatever, I wouldn't even feel it anymore. I was like, poof. So that's something that I experienced. So that is the principle. We have to call out to Krishna and cry, Krishna, I need you. What can I do to make you happy? Because by making Krishna happy, we become happy. So something else I've experienced is like, after a festival, you're starving. And then sometimes you want to serve in the prasadam line, or you get asked to do it. And I'm sure someone's experienced this, where you're serving in the line, and at first you're still starving, and you're looking at these gulab jamuns like, oh my gosh, I just want one, But then as you're serving everyone, and after you finish serving everyone, it's like, I'm not even hungry anymore, and you don't even feel like the gulab. So, don't know if anyone's experienced that, but I know I have. But you can also please Krishna by serving elevated Vaishnavas, and by that way you feel more connected to Krishna just by their association, or by glorifying Krishna and talking about him and, saying like, oh, this is how he's affected my life. That also, we become pleased through that. So like any relationship, the other person is going to be pleased if they feel thought of, remembered, and served. Not that Krishna needs it, but he reciprocates with our actions. And that's also how we express love. If you spend time with an animal, despite them being completely different, they begin to trust you and they become affectionate, and that's real connection. Prabhupada says that our happiness is Krishna. So now I'm going to pass it on to Daksa. I know, but I just... Well, I'm just going to say this one little thing. But my Guru Maharaj would always say that it is the mercy that carries us, or we are made of mercy. And that's true, because it is the mercy of Krishna that Arjuna played the part of a conditioned soul, so we can learn from Krishna's words and try to assimilate it in our lives to also achieve some spiritual advancement. And we're also full of the mercy of others who gave us a shot at growing closer to Krishna or God in this life to try to remember him. And that's all because of Prabhupada. So it's pretty amazing.
Okay. I'm going to repeat a lot of what you said because I was just listening to that same lecture. I couldn't really find any other lecture. I think Prabhupada only gave one lecture on this verse. But it's really cool because when you first, the more, it's like everybody says when you read the Bhagavad-gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam or any of Prabhupada's books, the more you read it, every single time you read it, it's like, oh, I've already read it, but the more you read it, you find out new things, and it's like never ending. It's the same with listening to Prabhupada's lectures. You start listening to it, and it's like, oh, okay, there's not much, it's just saying the same old things. And I was also saying, like, it wasn't that related to the verse, but then the more I listened to it, it's just like, oh, geez, how did I miss this? Last time I listened to it, then, oh, how did I miss this? How did I miss that? And then he also starts telling like a story, and you start to see how it's completely related to the verse that he's actually lecturing on. Prabhupada never missed. So the kind of he's in this lecture he wanted to give the backstory because it's the beginning of the second chapter, and the verse is just. There's not much in the verse. It's just Arjuna, Sanjaya telling Dhritarashtra that Arjuna is crying, and his mind is depressed. His eyes are full of tears, and he's also full of compassion. And then Krishna's about to speak. So there's not much to lecture on just that one little verse. So Prabhupada gives the backstory, and. So, like Sajjani was saying that the impersonalists, they want to become one with God, and but they don't realize that actually what is better than all those 5 types of liberation is becoming Krishna's commander. Not that we want to become Krishna's commander, that's never our desire, but by becoming his pure devotee, they just see that first part that, oh, I don't want to be a servant of God, who likes to be a servant? But when you serve Krishna with unalloyed devotion, he also wants to do the same with you because it's a relationship. Whereas if you're just trying to enjoy yourself, that will never work out. And this was always the thing that I grew up with. I was thinking for so many years, it's like, why can't I just enjoy? Why can't Krishna make me a universe where, why do I have to be sent to the material world if, like, Krishna punishes me, you're not thinking of me anymore, you want to be God, then I'm going to send you to the material world. I was like, Krishna, if you're all loving, why can't you let me be God too? That was my argument. If Krishna, you're all loving, you're all powerful, you can supply anything, why can't you let me be God too? But when it comes down to it, we are not, we're not even, obviously, it's the complete atheistic, idiotic way to think. But that's in a sense, we all think like that, and we have a tiny bit of that. That's our consciousness, that's why we're sent here. And the reason why that does not work is because you can see that enjoyment comes from relationships. If you had this whole earth right now, and there's no one else on it, you wouldn't be very happy. You could have billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, you could have all the Apple products that you want, all the food that you want, all the opulences that you could possibly want, but if you do not have anyone to share it with, you will not be happy. So then it comes to, relationships. And any type of relationships, we're not just talking about husband and wife or brother and sister, etc. It's just human to human or soul to soul. That's what enjoyment comes out of. So if you don't have anyone to share it with anything, then you're not going to enjoy. And that's why Prabhupada says, the impersonalist, fine, it's a bona fide method. You can go and you can get liberation. And you can join the Brahman effulgence. But who wants to do that? There's no relationships there. You become one with nothing. Oh yeah, that sounds so exciting. Oh son, what do you want to do when you grow up? Oh, I want to become one with nothing. Oh yeah, sounds so fun. Yeah, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to join the white light. Okay, do you need to see a psychiatrist? Are you okay? No, who wants to do that? And even if you do that, you'll get bored of it. You'll get bored of it, and that's why Prabhupada says it's not something that he ever recommend. Fine, it's there, and some people, fine, you can do it, and you can really achieve it. You can go for it, but you're not going to be happy. So then it comes to relationships now. So then why can't we be God? Because we're not very nice people. Even the person that I married, every day we can pick on each other in different things. And I'm supposed to love this person the most out of anyone in this world. And I can't treat her properly, or vice versa. So if we can't even treat one person properly, what to speak of us being God and we can treat everybody properly? That's why we cannot be God. We do not know how to control ourselves, control our senses, control our mind. And that's why we cannot be God. So then you actually, if you can come to that understanding, then you actually just get a sense of relief, and you can take a big deep breath and just sigh. It's like, okay, Krishna, I don't have to, there's no responsibility. So you're just asking me, Krishna, to come and play with you in the spiritual world? That seems much easier than trying to be God, than to have a relationship with everybody, be perfect. All of this, like Lord Vishnu, in Vaikuntha you have it reverence relationship. But how stressful would that be? We can't even, we can't even be on our A game. That's what I also used to think with Prabhupada. Was he ever stressed because he's our Acharya for thousands and thousands of years? You have all these, debates, Vaishnavi Diksha Gurus, this, that, or the other, or even the Ritvik thing, Prabhupada, they misconstrue things so much. So all of Prabhupada's actions, he would have been so aware that every single thing he said, every single thing he wrote was going to have was going to have an effect in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, thousands of years from when he passed away. So was he stressed out to be on his A game in the 12 years he came to the West, I can't do anything wrong? No, he's not stressed out, because when you're a pure devotee of Krishna, when you're actually in your natural state, you're happy. You're not stressed out in your natural state. And when you're in your natural state as a pure devotee of Krishna, there's no faults there, because your soul is Satchidananda. You're full of knowledge as well. You know how to act perfectly. His material body may have not been eternal, but his knowledge was there, and his body was just simply an instrument. I used to always think as well, a good way to think about it is, say you're playing a flute, and Krishna's playing the flute. You're not playing the flute. Krishna's playing the flute, and we say you should be an instrument of Krishna. You should be Krishna's servant, or be an instrument of Krishna. Okay, so if I'm Krishna's flute, and if I'm all blocked up with all my anarthas, all my own desires, Krishna can't play the flute. So someone like Prabhupada, he was completely clear. He was wanting to be Krishna's puppet, and he was qualified to. Krishna played his flute beautifully, and look what happened in 12 years. Look what, we're all here. So that's what happens when you just clear yourself. When you clear yourself from these anarthas, when you try to become more pure, and eventually when you can try and become like a pure devotee like Prabhupada, and that's our desire, that's our goal, then you're not stressed out. Prabhupada's not stressed out. He's actually less stressed out than us, and he was on his A game 24/7, and he was less stressed than us when you think about it, actually. He's the Acharya. He has temples all over the world, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in his name, and he's the least stressed than all of his disciples. Why? Because he's not doing it. He's letting Krishna do it. Yeah, no, I didn't even write any of that. Now I'm going on a mind blank, so I'm going to check my phone. I'll go off my notes now. So, yeah, we're talking about the story that Prabhupada's giving in his lecture. So, Arjuna is asking Krishna for advice now, and Arjuna addresses Krishna as Achyuta. Krishna is not Chuta, he is Achyuta, he is unconquerable. Srila Prabhupada says the Mayavadis will never understand this. They are trying to become one with the Lord or greater than the Lord, but they don't understand that the position of Arjuna is even better than all those 5 types of liberation. And Prabhupada says the different versions of the Bhagavad-gita sometimes say that the Kurukshetra battlefield actually refers to our body, and they may provide their explanations or interpretations. But Prabhupada is saying, he said in the lecture, the only time an interpretation is required, and this is also agreed upon amongst scholarly people, the only time an interpretation is required is when things or terms are not very clear. So, like when sometimes a lawyer has to explain some things to a judge, when the terms are not very clear. But when the terms are clear, you don't have to give an interpretation. It's already, it's there. So therefore, Prabhupada says that these different interpretations on the Bhagavad-gita is something like me telling my friend, oh, come with me, I have a special lamp, I can shed some light on the sun so you can see it better, understand it better. It doesn't make sense. The Bhagavad-gita is spoken as it is, and it should be taken as it is, and it's already bright and clear. There's no use of bringing a lamp to the sun. Oh, I'll show you, you are in darkness. I have a special lamp, I'm going to show you. That's what these people who wrote their own types of Bhagavad-gitas, I'm going to show you how this Bhagavad-gita should be understood. No, the sun is there. You don't need to show me. The lamp's not going to do anything. So Bhagavad-gita as it is, Prabhupada just cleared up all those different misconceptions and told in his purports how you should understand these things. And when you read it, there's no contradictions, whereas any other Bhagavad-gitas, when they give their own conceptions, in the first chapter and then the last chapter, they're going to say completely different things in the purports. Krishna's words will say the same, or even in the verses, they'll translate Krishna's word for word, the Sanskrit words, they'll translate it differently. Same with a lot of Bibles, that's what they also do. And it's like this movie, Christspiracy, they realized there's so many, for hundreds of years, thousands of years, they mistranslated this word. Instead of it, the Christians think it was the den of thieves, leading up to Jesus Christ's death. He went into the temple of thieves, and he flipped the tables because he was getting mad that they were dealing with money and they were having a market, gambling or dealing with money and selling things for money. But that word, it wasn't a temple of thieves, it was temple of murderers. It's not thieves, it was murderers. And what was actually happening, why Jesus Christ flipped the tables, is because they were selling meat. They were slaughtering animals. So it was a slaughterhouse. That's why Jesus Christ got upset. But you go to any church now, they say, oh, Jesus Christ flipped the tables because he didn't like money. But they say that to fit their own, exactly like the Mayavadis, to fit their own personal interpretations or their own motives. You're allowed to eat meat. That's not why Jesus Christ flipped the tables. You're allowed to eat meat. You just, don't be greedy for money. That's, Jesus Christ didn't like money or being greedy for money. But you're allowed to eat meat. It's okay. But actually, he got upset because they were slaughtering animals. And actually, the proof for that as well is that in that movie, it's amazing, but it's also, I encourage you to watch it, but it's also a very kind of depressing movie. That movie just kind of criticizes all religions instead of just talking about Christianity. It goes through the other religions. It's eye-opening, but it is also kind of an atheistic movie, which is kind of unfortunate. Anyway, but that temple, that Christian temple that Jesus Christ that actually he was in and he flipped the tables, that temple, how you can prove that it was a slaughterhouse is there were tunnels and passages underneath the temple for the blood to flow through. So there is your proof that it wasn't just dealing with money. There was tunnels and passages that the blood was flowing through that proved it was a slaughterhouse. That's why Jesus Christ was upset. So then Prabhupada goes on to talk about the first verse of the Bhagavad-gita. He's explaining how we have got here to this first text of the chapter 2. how Arjuna is full of compassion, his mind is depressed, and his eyes are full of tears. So the first verse of Bhagavad-gita, Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjaya, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? Dhritarashtra uvacha dharmakshetre kurukshetre samaveta yutsava mamaka pandavaschaiva kimakurvata Sanjaya. So Dhritarashtra was very anxious to know this. What were his sons doing? So he was asking Sanjaya, and because he's blessed by Vyasadeva, like Sajjani was saying, he could see the battlefield within his heart. And Prabhupada called it like it's a type of television, that he could actually just see within his heart what was happening on the battlefield. So Prabhupada was explaining that why ask that sort of question? Because that verse, Dhritarashtra understood that they were samaveta yutsavaha. He said it himself. The word is used yutsavaha. They were assembled, samaveta, and yutsava. Yutsava means desiring to fight. So Dhritarashtra said they're desiring to fight. So why ask what are they going to do? They're desiring to fight. So Prabhupada said it is natural to conclude that when they are assembled for fighting, there must be fighting. So then why did he ask Sanjaya? The first text, why did the whole Bhagavad-gita happen? Why did Dhritarashtra ask Sanjaya, what did they do? Well, it's pretty obvious what they're going to do. They're on the battlefield, they're assembled, desiring to fight, they're going to fight. But the reason Dhritarashtra asks is because since this Kurukshetra is Dharmakshetra. Dharmakshetra is a place where religious rituals are performed, like a temple, any holy pilgrimage place. So Dharmakshetra is because this Kurukshetra is a holy place. It's Dharmakshetra that both parties, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, Dhritarashtra was thinking, are they going to change their minds because they're in a holy place? And Prabhupada explained that still, till today, in villages in India, or even in different cultures in the world, if they're religious, if the two parties are not agreeable, they'll go to a temple, and in the temple, they'll, in front of God, they say, tell the truth, and they must. Prabhupada says they don't dare to speak lies, because they were more pious back then. In front of God, they're not going to speak lies. Nowadays, people don't even believe in God, what to speak of speaking lies. So that way, in the temple, in front of God, whatever, in the church, they would settle things up without fighting. So they would speak the truth in front of God. But Dhritarashtra, he didn't want the Pandavas and the Kauravas to just talk it out without fighting. All his life, Dhritarashtra was after the throne because his brother, he was blind, so his brother Pandu took it. And then when the Pandu had his Pandavas, had his sons took it. So now Uncle Dhritarashtra he's always wanted to kill the Pandavas. He couldn't kill Pandu because it's his brother, and he's the king now. But at least with his sons, Dhritarashtra had 100 Kaurava sons, and Pandu only had five sons. On 100 to 5. So Dhritarashtra was very hopeful that his sons, 100 sons, could kill the 5 Pandavas. So at least he couldn't be king, but okay, my sons will be king, and Duryodhana will be a king, my head son, and they'll kill the 5 Pandavas. He didn't want them to talk it out and work it out. He wanted them dead. Prabhupada says Dhritarashtra said no to reconciliation. There must be fighting. So all his life, his mission, Dhritarashtra's mission was how to kill the sons of his brother Pandu, so his own sons can have the throne. So another thing is the effect of this dharma, like Sajjani was saying, this dharma kshetra, this holy place where religious ritualistic performances are done. Prabhupada says the effect of a holy place takes effect very quickly for a devotee of the Lord. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavat akinchana. So it's from the Bhagavatam, he quotes in the 5th canto, chapter 18, text 12. For Arjuna, the effect of being in a holy place, Prabhupada says, was he has this compassion. What is this? He's in the battlefield. Why shall I kill my brothers and family? That was the effect for Arjuna, of being in a holy place. I'm in a holy place. Why am I going about to commit these sinful activities? This sentiment came into the mind of Arjuna, but there was no effect for Dhritarashtra. Why there was no effect of Dhritarashtra? Because that same verse, Canto 5, Harav aptasya kuto mahadguna manoratenashti dhavato bahi. The first part is all the demigods and their exalted qualities, such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation, become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva. So for a devotee, all these qualities like Prabhupada, he was pretty much perfect at everything. He didn't have to try for that. Just because he was a pure devotee of Vasudeva, he was a pure devotee of Krishna, Krishna could play his flute perfectly and make him a perfect person. But on the other hand, why there's no effect on Dhritarashtra? A person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities. Even if he is adept to the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives, he must be driven by his own mental speculations and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a man? So he may be a very good materialist. He might be a good family member. He works hard for his kids, for his wife, maintain the house, but he's doing it for himself. So how can there be any good qualities? Ultimately, there's selfishness in there. He's doing it for himself. So, and then he also quotes that Namam duskritino muddha prapadyante naradhama mayaya parita jnana asuram bhavam ashrita. Those miscreants, the other reason why Dhritarashtra, the holy place, the temple, had no effect on Dhritarashtra, those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. Duryodhana's knowledge was stolen by illusion. He wanted to become king so bad. And he partakes of the atheistic nature of demons. They do not surrender to Krishna. So, Kriti, Prabhupada says, Duryodhana also had a good brain. Kriti means one who has got a good brain. But duskritina is the brain is applied for mischievous activities. So like Sajjani was saying, a thief has to be smart too. He's got to plan out things to be a good thief. But he becomes duskritina when he's a demon or when he uses it for himself or against Krishna. That's all I read. There's 6 minutes left. Are there any questions? And thank you. And please forgive us for any mistakes.
Thank you, Prabhu, for class.
Thank you for coming.
Very good, very nice. I have 2 reflections, if I'm allowed, and 2 questions. One. Just because today I was talking with Ajit about envy, and then I started chapter 9 of Bhagavad-gita, and the first verse of chapter 9 is Krishna telling Arjuna that because you're not envious, you can receive this most confidential knowledge. And in 4:7, Krishna, as you were mentioning, he tells Arjuna, I can tell this to you because you are my friend and devotee. So, in order to receive this transcendental knowledge, which is, and the most confidential one, is the pure devotional service, we need to be friend, devotee, and we need to be free of envy. So we're just reflecting today on how envy is actually the root cause of our forgetfulness of Krishna, and also the root cause of our distress. Because of envy, we are here, and because of envy, we try to imitate Krishna. We try to be the enjoyer, the controller, the proprietor, the friend of everybody. But because that doesn't happen, because we are not Krishna, then we become miserable. And our happiness, as you said, our happiness is Krishna, because our happiness actually is serving. And that goes to the next reflection, which I was thinking like you a few weeks ago, I was thinking, but if Krishna wanted us to, he's like, I love you, you can do whatever you want. Well, then why don't you make, I want to be God, let me be God. You're not allowing me to be God. But actually this word is for us to try to be God. And that doesn't work also because our constitutional position cannot change. And it's our nature, it can't change. And we are servant, so we can't be Purusha, even if we try so hard. We are Prakriti, we are controlled. So we're trying, but it's not working, really. So, and then I had 2 questions. One is very simple. What was the Bhagavatam verse you were quoting just now about the shelter?
The Bhagavatam verse
the purpose, you were saying taking shelter of the person who still works in the word is taking shelter of the external energy. So how can he be
Yeah, that's one Prabhupada quotes all the time. It's Canto 5, Chapter 18. text 12.
Thanks. And the next question, it was about the 5 kinds of liberation. If you think could we connect them with the different some of the processes of yoga?
Meaning?
Like this, the 5 liberations that you were talking about. For example, like the jnanis who just they speculate mentally, then they reach Brahman. But then there's like many that I have never heard before. So do you think we could like connect them to different processes of yoga, different kinds of realization, and different then eventually destinations? You know what I'm saying? Do you understand the question?
Not really. Different process of yoga, like what,
So
Bhakti yoga, and within Bhakti yoga?
Yeah, including Bhakti yoga. Because Sajjani was saying like, I don't remember the 5 of them, but one was like, becoming God. So then my question would be like, so what processes would that be? Who is trying to be God? What kind of yogi is that one?
It wasn't becoming God. It was Sarupya is having the same form. Salokya, living on the same planet. There's also the same opulences. None of them are becoming God. There's becoming one with God, but at least you're not like, becoming God is completely atheistic. Becoming one with God is like, okay, it's kind of depressing. Anyway, becoming one with God. At least there's a difference between becoming one with God and trying to become God. And then the other one was having association with God. So, yeah, I said that already. Living on the same planet. Yeah, so, yeah. So what's your question?
Like for example, those who want to live in the same planet as Krishna, is that like, how would we define them? Are they authors?
How would we define those? Yeah, how would we define the people who are wanting to those different type of liberation? Is that your question?
Of yoga, how can we relate that to the 5 kinds of liberation? So she said, like with the jnanis, like where would they kind of fit within the 5? Is it what you're saying?
Yeah, that's just an example. I guess the jnanis who merge with God. I guess that would be. Then, for example, who are these people who want to live in the same planet? Are they authors? Are they yogis? So they are kind. And also,
I remember, was he Jidapur? Maybe I shouldn't say his name, otherwise he get upset at me. But no, people who want to live on the same planet as God, everything's kind of, everything, it's not black and white. For example, living in Vaikuntha is 100% like a bona fide type of liberation. There's no time limit on that. Like going to heaven, you live for trillions of years and then your time's up. You're still going off karma. But living on the same planet as God, it depends what your motive is. If you're just wanting to do it, why are you wanting to do it? Because you like having all the opulences? Well, then maybe just go to heaven. But the reason why Prabhupada says that the devotees don't even want that is because, like Prabhupada says in the story with the gopis, they don't care where they are. They can be in hell. But as long as they can serve Krishna or think of Krishna, they don't care. So that's the devotee level. That's why Prabhupada says the devotees don't even want those 5. And that was pretty, the 5th type of liberation, that even the association of Krishna. The 5th type of liberation, Prabhupada says, was wanting association with God. Devotees don't even want that. Really? What? I thought that's what we were trying to do. That's why we come to the temple, that's why we sing, and that's why we want to go back to Goloka Vrindavan. We want association with God. But that's just like mind-blowing. Wow, so I'm not supposed to want association with God. It's not that you're not supposed to want that, but it's you don't mind whatever Krishna puts you in, whatever situation Krishna puts you in, He's always with you in your heart. That's the point of that. So it just depends what motive you have. So yeah, I also think like in India, like you have so many different type of yogis, and even when I was at Woodford, Mark, he really blew my mind. He was telling me about like the forgot what it's called, that type of yoga where you just meditate on your body and you like scan your body and stuff and you reach like a certain level. Like the way he explained it, he was actually saying like he actually experienced certain things with his body. And if I had, like before that, if he didn't tell me that, I would have just thought like that type of yoga was kind of, bogus, it didn't work. But it does work. So I was like, that really opened my mind. Like, so imagine if, like this dude is doing it in the West, in Australia. So there's a bona fide way, and it actually works. But still, he wasn't really able to explain what the goal is or what the end result is. But so in India, imagine how many different type of yogis there would be. All these 5 types of liberation. In India, there would be all those type of people who are trying to achieve different types of liberation. Because Krishna also created that. Every soul's got different flavors. What do they call? Like different things for different people. Anyway, different stroke for different. Yeah, is that the one? Different stroke for different folk. So, yeah, I don't know. Sorry if I hope. Yeah. Jackson, did you have a question?
So the flute analogy, and Prabhupada was born a pure devotee. So when he wrote these books and Bhagavad-gita as it is, so we take that as perfect word from the Guru. And so then when there's another Bhagavad-gita as it is, with like different words in it, how do we justify that? Like the same book, but some things have been omitted, some sentences are different.
So kind of 2 questions. So are you making a hint at like what the BBT is doing now, whatever, like the Bhagavad Gita that they're publishing now, or just a few words or sometimes sentences are changing? Or are you talking about any Joe Blow out there who decides to make his own Bhagavad Gita and call it the same as Bhagavad Gita as it is?
No, these books.
These new books that they're publishing.
In comparison to, say, the first or second editions.
Yeah. This is a big topic, right? This is like a debate. Every single devotee probably has a different view on it. So I can just say what I think. Do you want to answer? At the end of the day, it's will you achieve the same result by reading these new Bhagavad Gitas as reading the first Bhagavad Gita? Answer that simply, 100% yes. I think by reading these new Bhagavad Gitas they're publishing compared to the 1977 Bhagavad Gitas or 1966, I'm sure or certain that you're going to go, if you follow Prabhupada's process and what it says in those books, you'll achieve the same result. So that's the end. Like, you could just close the case there, so there hasn't been much changed. But yeah, you could go on and about. Every devotee has different things. Prabhupada says, never change my books, but then also he trusted these devotees who have thought that these certain changes would be good. And some of them are so minor, and whatever make it. There was one certain Bhagavad Gita that I forgot his name, that he changed it so much that Prabhupada really didn't like it. When Prabhupada was still alive, he was making it really like he used Christian words, like he didn't use personality of Godhead and different words. Can't remember, but like Prabhupada really didn't like it. He just got rid of him pretty much, and. Prabhupada chose these certain devotees and entrusted them to make the certain changes. Then you could say, okay, if Prabhupada decided that he trusted his devotees, then whatever changes they made, Prabhupada would know of that, But I can't really say too much. I'm not that senior enough. Yeah. I hope that helps. You can say something if you want.
would you say that if that's the way that it's gone, that's Krishna's will? And if so, do you think the people that have made these changes were also vessels of Krishna?
You're asking me to determine another devotee of Krishna's relationship with Krishna, and I can't do that. I don't know. I don't even know my own wife's relationship with Krishna. So, and you're asking me, but then you're also like, everybody does it 100%. I think about it too, but I can't. I'm not in the position, nor will I ever will be, to know what someone's relationship with Krishna is. So, whether they're a vessel of Krishna or not, how am I supposed to know that? But at the end of the day, you read this current Bhagavad-gita compared to 1966, you're set. And if anything, if you really want to get some clarity out of it, probably talk to someone who's involved with the GBC or the BBT, who are involved in that directly. Otherwise, if you ask people like me, any Joe Blower in the temple, they're going to be like, have the completely own opinions, But why does their opinion matter? They're not involved with the actual decision that's going to be made. So you can talk to someone senior, Yeah, I hope that helps. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Shila Prabhupada ki jai.